Hey everybody, Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio Podcast. We produce some of the best audio content available for aftermarket professionals that you'll find anywhere on the web. Good to have you here. Let me see, where were we, Stacy, Dan? We were in St. Petersburg, I think.
That sounds right. Yes.
Yeah, you guys may have been enjoying the sun, but I was busy working that whole entire conference. Everybody says, "Well, you're so lucky to go to places warm," and I said, "Yeah, but I didn't see the sun for 3 days." Because
Well, we
I
were
was
enjoying it.
yeah, well, good. I'm glad you were we were at the Institute Summit, bumped into Dan Adam, and of course, Stacy was there, and, I got this really cool thing. I'm gonna hold it up here in the video. Now, if you can't see it under audio, these are the 28 fundamentals of Adam and Son, and I was just blown away by it. I had to have a copy of it. I says, "Can I have this?" And it speaks to all the fundamentals, and as we continued to work and we started to talk about culture and social. Oh my God, it was almost like we were, emblazoned into an incredible discussion. And I said, "Stop. We have to have you on the show. We have to talk about the great things that you're doing at Adam and Son." Dan Adam, owner, Adam and Son, 2 locations, Colorado Springs, California. Glad to have you here, Dan.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's Colorado Springs, Colorado,
What did I
versus
say? What did I say?
California.
I did, didn't I? And it says specifically CO on my notes. Why did I do that?
Well, I'm glad to
Sorry,
be
bud.
here. Doesn't matter if I'm in California or Colorado. I'm still
Yeah.
happy to be on the show. So,
Well, thank you for fixing me. I hope that's the only mistake I do today here on this show, so, we have to count them. Stacy Burns, VP of Social Impact and Strategy for Adam and Son. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Carm. Nice to see you again.
It's the same here. That is such an interesting title. I can't wait to get into it and find out all the good things that you're doing. I have to tell you, please go to Adam and Son, website and just look at the introductory remarks, Dan. They're brilliant. And so much of what this episode's about is to change people's ideas of what a customer experience is about and how important culture is, and how you've reached out saying, "I started this because our industry, didn't have a good rep and it wasn't professional enough, and I wanted to make a major change to that." And you, in maybe a paragraph or two, tell that story. What prompted you to want to be so different?
well, for me, it started back when I was working for a local auto repair shop, and the company culture was just it was not great. We'll just say that, and their customer service was horrendous. And I remember a time that the owner of the company took us to dinner, the entire team, and we're sitting at dinner, and he stands up and says, "Each and every one of you are replaceable. Oh, and by the way, we're going to start charging you for coffee." So it was just a major hit to the culture in our company and the way we felt. And so I realized there's got to be a better way of running a business. And I came to the owner and I said, "Hey, I've got all these great ideas. This is what I think we should do to improve our customer service and tech efficiency and things like that." And he took these ideas and he instituted them all wrong. And it turned out poorly, where his idea of improving tech efficiency was to add an extra hour to everybody's already long workday. So I went out there. At the time, my mother often heard me speak of my frustrations and then my ideas on what we could do. And she had ended up pushing me into owning my own shop, is what happened. So, yeah, she got very excited about my ideas. And so, what happened is, with a $120,000 loan from my family, I went out and acquired my first shop. And it was mainly because when I was looking for other shops to find a job, be a service advisor, whatever the case was, I had actually started out as a lube technician, worked up to being a master tech, and then service advisor. So I was out there looking, and I just could not find, that vision that's the shop had. So yeah, that's how I started getting into this.
Thank you, Mom.
Exactly. Oh, I got a funny
Wow.
story about that too, about my mother and her passion for supporting me. I was presentation to a very large networking group here in Colorado Springs, and it was a presentation talking about our company. Well, I invited my mother to come to this presentation. So
Ain't that cool?
it was really fun. And as I was describing all these things that are happening for our company based on what we're going to be talking about later on, social impact. But we had been featured in our local city Gazette newspaper. They did an article on our Stranded Motorist Fund. So I'm up there presenting, talking about this stuff. And I told the story about how my mother has always been my biggest supporter. And I told the story when she did a mic drop. So 7:30 in the morning, I get this phone call from my mother, and she says, "You are on the front page of the business section." It was a very well written article. Click, hung up, nothing else. That's all she said. So I'm describing this microphone mic drop to the group, and what was really neat is I got to present a framed copy of that article to my mother, to that group. It was a very special moment. So really neat stuff.
I love that story. Dan, my daughter Tracy has been telling me over the years, Dad, you gotta write these stories down because you have a ton of them from all your years in the industry. And so I actually have been, Dan. And we all have such great stories that I believe need to be told because they can connect with people on a cerebral level, or very intimate level. And I think that helps people understand that that's so much a part of our legacy, the things that have happened in the past that we don't quite realize shaped us.
Absolutely.
Great, great story. Wow. So, did mom help bring the culture to the business that you had, or as an ideas person and as a person who didn't want anyone inside your business or even outside your business to experience the same things you did? How did the culture evolve?
The culture actually evolved. It, um, I'll tell you the story of my mother initially being involved in the business was that in the early days, she would often sit in the lobby of the shop and just watch me do my thing and interact. As I'm interacting with the customer, she's just smiling and beaming, just really enjoying it. And she still does this to this day. She just doesn't do it from the lobby. So each time we get recognized for an award or some event, she's out there spreading the word, telling our neighbors and friends and family, emailing everybody, and stopping people in the grocery store and telling them about what Adam and Son is doing. So she's still very much part of that and pushing us. But the culture side of it really just came from what I saw a need in our industry, which was missing in there. And for many years, I've talked about how we've had a great company culture, but I've never really defined what that meant. And it was at that time that we put together our 28 fundamentals that creates behaviors for our team members. And versus, all companies have a company culture, and most of the time they talk about values and they'll put up these vague values on the wall, such as have integrity. Well, that's great, but how do you teach an employee to have integrity? It's not an easy thing. And then you think about it once a year, you might bring it up quarterly in meetings or something like that, but is not habitual. So those 28 fundamentals, the way that works in our company is each week write a message that goes out to the entire company, both store locations, and my thoughts on the fundamental for the week. And then in each daily huddle, each meeting the teams have, the meetings start with going over that fundamental for the week. And, they start out with things like, always do the right thing even if nobody is watching. Be fanatical about response times, things like that. And so when you start talking about this every single day and you repeat it, it becomes ingrained, it becomes habitual. And the really cool part is as we go through all 28 of those, it starts all over again once we've completed it. And now somebody else in the team takes the lead in that discussion. And so it's a really great way of just making this part of our company, part of our culture. In fact, we use this in the interview process. So when somebody is applying for a position in the company, before they even come into the shop for the interview, we ask them to go to our website, review the 28 fundamentals, and pick out 3 that they excel at and 3 that are areas of improvement for themselves. So when they do come in for the interview, first thing we do is we ask them, have you had time to review those fundamentals? And if the answer is no, we let them know it's going to be a very short interview because this is what we're about. We will be talking about the fundamentals today. And what happens is it weeds out the people that don't put in the effort to actually learn this stuff and what we're about. But it also brings in the people that are excited about working for a company with this kind of culture. It's a really cool concept.
I think it's a brilliant way to filter. Wow.
Absolutely.
So these 28 fundamentals, everyone, I know we can't get to them in our podcast and to describe them all to you, but they seem more actionable items. You think of the word integrity. Okay, it's a belief that you want to always do the thing right, but it doesn't seem actionable. Like your first fundamental is do the right thing always. And now you can sit and discuss, is that actionable, but make quality personal. They just seem like they're almost like verbiage to me, that these are things that we have to do around them. Practice blameless problem solving. Wow,
Well,
that is
it's a tool to solve problems, and it's really fun to see our technicians get behind this, and they're talking to each other and holding each other accountable. Think about one of the fundamentals is speak straight. How many times do you have issues with people going around to each other's back, talking to their supervisor and all this kind of stuff? You institute this in the company, it solves that problem. So it's a fun thing. And when we did this rollout, when we presented this to the entire company, what we did is we did an offsite meeting. The entire shop shut down. We went to another building, had this conference room we rented out, and we worked through each fundamental. And my concern was we're bringing this to technicians and people that are generally not in this kind of area. So it was really fun to come back to work the next day and hear the feedback where everybody was excited about this. They're just chatting away and saying and seeing how it applies to them in our company. So again, it's a lot of fun, and it just creates a culture of excellence.
the words I'm thinking right now are warm belonging. The next day, you just get that juice flowing, that we're all marching to the beat of the same drummer boy. Your number 24 is take pride in your appearance. And we just did a show on dressing professional. So these are the right things we need to do for our industry if we're going to continue to be so relevant as technology is forcing us to invest in training, to be relevant to consumers and their new vehicles and the new technology, and to let them not think that they don't have to go to a dealer. And we need to continue
100%.
to impress them. Hey, look, if you earn your living in the automotive service aftermarket, Apex is for you. Now, if you attended Apex 2022, then you realize the incredible commitment that Apex has to the service professional shop owner and technician. Joe's Garage is your place to be with 10 working bays as you experience real live working conditions along with exciting demonstrations and the latest equipment presented. Also, the best tech companies from tools and repair to management software had their latest and the greatest on display. You also attended technical business management training with the industry's best and brightest. Work is already underway to make next year's Apex 2023 even better than ever with more product demos, trending training, marketing, and the latest in business management training to help you grow your sales and profits. Remember, if you earn your living in the aftermarket, then Apex is the expo for you. Continue listening as we bring you the latest from Apex 2023. Save the date, October 31st through November 2nd, 2023. Hey, let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. Napa Trax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the industry's best, most comprehensive SMS. Now, it all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you need to run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice, and having local representation is a huge plus. Customizing tracks to your business, whether you're a one-person shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company, a representative consults with you to help optimize your shop's workflow, efficiency, and profitability. Trax always has the flexibility to do business how you need to do it. which means it can also grow as your business grows. And unlike the other guys, will be there for you after installation with the best training and support in the business. Yes, a learning management system tailored to each role in your company. Simply put, Trax was designed and built for shop owners just like you. Visit us on the web at NapaTrax, that's NapaTracs.com. Stacy, regarding the whole culture thing, any fun examples of these great fundamentals that you've worked with?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've implemented as a leadership team is a very nice, very large wrestling style belt, like WWF wrestling style culture belt.
Yeah.
And so we pass that around to whoever our culture icon is. They get to keep it for 2 weeks. They can take it home, they can sleep with it, they can wear it around town, whatever they want to do. But the neatest part that we've seen is as this passes from team member to team member, they share words. So the person that has it will be the one that passes that to the next person to receive it. And so they identify one of the fundamentals that really stands out and who they're giving it to and why that is meaningful to them. And to Dan's point, hearing a tech pass it to a service consultant, service advisor, hearing one of our service consultant assistants passing it to a tech. They start to relate to each other and interact in very different ways than just, I need something from you. It becomes less transactional, right? And so we had one tech, our last passing of the belt, which was almost 2 weeks ago. We had a tech that had received it. He's one of our hardest workers, highest productivity, and he passed it off to a service consultant before he went to visit his grandma. He actually waited before he left to go visit his grandma for the weekend so that he could make sure to pass this belt off. And so it's meaningful. It's important to our folks and our team members, and I think it really comes out when our customers walk through the door as well. So.
I love that story. Is there one belt per store?
Nope, just one belt, so they have to pass it back and forth between stores. So they need to meet our entire team and make sure that they are saying something meaningful to someone, even if they're not in the same shop as them every day.
Well, that seems to be tough over distance to have an impression upon each other's team.
We try to do enough team building where everybody has an idea. We do a lot of new team member intros, taking folks to both shops so that even if that's not their place that they're showing up to every day, that they're familiar with the folks at the other shop, and that everyone at least has a face with a name, and hopefully some different team member highlights and stuff like that that help you get
Yeah.
to know that person across the town.
How
Stacy, if you
cool.
could explain the kudos portion of our chat system, each store can see what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so the fundamentals when we rolled them out, we really wanted to make sure that there was a central place to keep track of the good things that folks want to share. And that can be the Google reviews that are coming in, especially if they mention a name. We definitely want to share that with the entire team. But even past between team members, where you really see a lot of people light up other folks for everything from thanks for cleaning the shop to thanks for making that guest's day and changing their entire course of how they were going to feel, not only about having to get their car fixed, but probably how they interacted with the world for the rest of the day. And so it's wonderful actually to read back. Like sometimes I'll just kind of scroll back and see how long it's gotten, and the 6 months since we started
Sure.
that piece of it
Sure.
specifically. So yeah.
Let's share with everyone what kind of software do you use to chat amongst everyone?
It
So
is
that's
Google
for Google
Chats.
Chat.
Google Chat?
Yes.
Cool. So, there's a lot of people say, I'd love to do that. What do I use? So thank you for that. A lot of people use Slack. It's another neat tool. So look, a great culture inside of a business typically gets itself outdoors into the community, into the customer base. And everything that you're doing inside is to make for a great place to work, a great family environment, but it's also to make sure that our customers have this most perfect experience. And that has had to have a huge effect for you.
It is. This culture that we've developed, it's fascinating to see the feedback that we get from our customers through our Google reviews, for instance. I've always looked at the feedback we get when we have a new service advisor come on board, and if the feedback the customer reviews don't include their service advisors' names, things like that, we know they're not making a connection. And so when you start to see that feedback and they're saying, hey, this service advisor, Eric, he's an amazing guy, that kind of stuff, we know we're making a connection. Now, in our company, we've taken that community engagement to a whole nother level through our social impact programs. And I can certainly dive into that if you'd like. But it just takes our culture and it funnels it through into our community. So it's just this connector that we have created.
I'd love to find out how that social impact works. In fact, Stacy, that's your title. And you probably are carrying a heavy load, making sure that the image, everything that you're doing on the inside is getting outside, but you're also so heavily involved in the community. So either Dan or Stacy, let's dive into that.
Well, I can give you how we get started into social impact, and Stacy can probably dive into what social impact means. Stacy's been doing this for 2 decades, so she's going to have a lot of insight to that. But for Adam and Son and how we got involved in social impact was something that we started back in 2008. And we, at the time, my kids were in the Colorado Springs Children's Corral, and they were asked to fundraise to cover tuition costs and travel expenses. And so what we were asked to do is go out and sell butter braid pastries for $10 a piece, and $4 would go to the Children's Corral. So at the time, my son was scheduled to go to Australia with the group, and that was going to be a $5,000 trip. That is an insane amount of butter braids that we would have to sell. So, there had to be a better way and something that would have a higher return on investment as well as supporting local business. It was kind of frustrating to me that all of our communities, organizations were selecting these national industry partners and it doesn't stay in the community. So anyway, I started thinking about it. Why don't we donate oil change packages to the Children's Corral? So we created what we call the Trifecta Oil Change Program. And the reason it's called Trifecta is because it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the customer buying the package because they're buying a discounted package. It's a win for the organization we're supporting. And then it is a win for our Stranded Motorist Fund, which I can get into a little bit later. But the idea is when we donate these packages, they go out and they sell them to their own following, social media, their parents, whatever the case is. They go out and sell these packages. They keep 80% of what they sell for their organization. The other 20% goes to the Stranded Motorist Fund. So if you can imagine, $4 for a pastry, or you're looking at a $200 oil change package, there's a huge benefit to this organization. So that was our very first social impact program. Now, when I put that together, I didn't know what social impact was. We were just doing it. But it was in 2020 that we developed our Stranded Motorist Fund. And that is the fund or the social impact program we're best known for now, anyway. And that started with, we were training a new service advisor at the time. And she asked the question, what do we do when somebody can't afford to fix their cars? And we all know, same answers. You offer financing, check with family members, see if they're attached to a church, something like that. And we realized we needed something more formal, a process in place. So we tasked her with going out and researching what resources are out there. Well, she came back with, there are no resources out there. And I thought, that can't be right. So I went out and I researched it and I came back with, there are no resources. So that's when we decided we had to do something about this. We have the ability, let's do it. So we created the Stranded Motorist Fund to help people that can't afford to fix their cars. And it has just blown up. It has grown so big. Right now, we're helping domestic violence victims, single mothers, disabled veterans, homeless, and we're associated with many different agencies in town, from the local Department of Human Services to support systems. And it's become something where our community is rallying behind us as well as taking us up on that offer to be able to help them. So it's become very big for us anyway.
Well, I'm sitting here with a million questions. Is it a 501c3? Are you the only fundraiser for this? Wow, it sounds big, wide, expansive, giving. Who's controlling this thing? Is it you, Stacy?
I wouldn't say I'm controlling it, but I got to walk into some programs that were very well established. The opportunity I've had is to tell the story and continue to put structure to it so that we can continue to grow the program meaningfully. So Dan's very humble and doesn't really talk about this a whole lot himself, but we've had 278 applications since 2020 when we started the Stranded Motorist Program. And Dan has pretty much single-handedly funded $130,000 in repairs and donated vehicles. So when I came on last year, we did write a few grants. We got some very small grant funding that's going to start to chip away at those costs. But this really is Dan taking his expendable income and saying, this is how we impact our community and this is how we're going to make everything better. And so my background in social impact, what you look at is what transportation does for people and why is that meaningful. Transportation keeps people out of higher levels of care. So they're not becoming homeless or reliant on government systems. Transportation safely make sure that we're not injuring those families as they travel or injuring other people should you be driving an unsafe vehicle. And the most interesting part, we've had an influx. We've had 50 applications in the last month, which is a stark increase for us because of the article that was written in the paper that Dan mentioned earlier. And so obviously there's a need out there. And so when we look at the different types of organizations that are applying, what we're even starting to get now is school counselors reaching out to us and saying, we haven't seen a kiddo in weeks and they're in danger of going to truancy court and mom and dad can't get here because the vehicle doesn't work. And so we're changing the future of young people for their educational outlook, for their job outlook. Transportation is huge, and we understand that 1 in 3 people can't make a repair without going into debt if the repair costs over $600. But what if you can't make that repair at all? What if debt isn't an option? And so Dan's really changed that in some really meaningful ways for a lot of families here in our region.
Dan, has this gotten bigger than you ever expected?
100%. Yeah, it was when we started this Stranded Motorist Fund, and it really was servicing our own customers that were coming in. And what I didn't realize is what we uncovered was this massive need. And it's interesting that all these agencies that are reaching out now are starting to understand that that doesn't exist anymore. They have been trying to handle it on their own by, sending somebody to a shop and hopefully they're going to be taken care of. But there's been no program around this. And so by developing this program for these agencies, now they have a system process that they can partner with us. And so, yeah, the need is just incredible. I had no
We've
idea.
done episodes on this, renting a bay, supporting people with money, with parts, with support, with diagnostics.
We do. So we want to make sure our 2 primary goals are safety and self-sufficiency. So if we ever have an instance where both of those boxes are checked, in addition to some other, we'll do some light kind of checking on financial need. That's where those community partners become so integral, is
Right,
making
right.
sure that they've kind of vetted them financially as well. That helps us a lot, and making sure that we're meeting the folks that have the most need. But just a couple of examples, we helped one young man that is living in a tiny home village because he was exited from the foster care system, had nowhere to go. And so this tiny home village was created in our community to help transitioning foster youth to become functional and valuable adults in our society. But one of the things that they really needed help with was transportation. And so we helped an 18-year-old young man who was living in the tiny home and had just gotten his first full-time livable wage job and needed a car to get to work sites. And so we helped him fix his car. And he's all of these stories can be seen on our YouTube channel for Adam and Son. But Julian was so appreciative, and just we were so happy to help him change what he's going to know as reality as an adult about how his community wraps around him.
Dan, you're so giving. Could you involve other great independents like you in your community to get behind an initiative like this?
Absolutely. In fact, that is the future of the Stranded Motorist Fund. We are working on taking this on a national level. And for the last few years, as we've been building out these programs, we've really kind of kept it quiet. We have not been spreading the word about what we've been doing. We've wanted to test all these systems out, work out the bugs, find out where the issues are. And we're now at this point where we're starting to share what we've been doing. And one of the ways that we're looking at taking this on a national level is through our consulting company that we just created, which is Automotive Impact Network. And the idea is we are going to consult to other shops on how to become a social impact company. Once they become a social impact company, now they can join the network of other auto repair shops. And we have this collaborative of shops that are like minded, helping their communities. And the cool part about this is, as we're sharing these concepts back and forth between these shops, is we've already built the programs. Now it's just a matter of they can participate in what we've already built. So we're currently building out the technology that when somebody wants to use, let's say, our Trifecta Oil Change Program, one of these shops, it's just a click of a button. Now they're signed up, and now their community can start participating in this, and they have an immediate impact in their own community.
Guys, help me understand the outreach to the community. What portals, what social media outlets are you looking for? Picture opportunities, storytelling. I don't think this thing grew as big as it did, Dan, without telling that story. Stacy, how did you do it?
So we have a great catalog of videos. One of the things that we talk to about folks that we help is, hey, if you're comfortable being on video, we would love to help share the success story so other people see that this might be the solution they're looking for as well. It's not about us, but it's really about how do we engage the community on who's the right person, and how meaningful that can be for them to have transportation available to them that's safe and reliable. But the piece that really, I take no credit for this, Dan did a beautiful job of building it, is really just making those one-on-one connections with the community that actually were meaningful for us and for them. The thing that I love about social impact is, just like our trifecta, it should be a win-win. All boats should rise when you're doing it right. And it shouldn't be someone taking advantage of another, or someone just writing a check and being able to walk away. This is about an investment in making our community better. And so when we find the right partners, you just kind of know, and you continue those conversations. And that's allowed us to not only be incredibly supportive of their needs, but also dynamic and adaptive to really how those needs change. So 2020, you've got the pandemic. Now you've got some version of a recession happening, or at least cost of living increasing, where people are really tightening their belts, and that's creating a challenge for folks to be able to afford these repairs when they're looking at that, or do I go to the grocery store and actually feed my family tonight?
I mean, it's going on for so long. Why all of a sudden here in Q2 are people paying attention to that? It's just my crazy common sense kind of growing in here. Dan, have you followed through on all the people you've helped to see if it made a difference for them?
Actually, that is a great question for Stacy, because she actually sends out surveys to the people we've helped in the past. We get feedback from people we've helped, as we're sharing our story and it's catching people's attention. Even the news media, they always want to hear about a story of somebody we've helped, and what it looks like for them today. So as we reach out to these people and get that follow up and seeing how they're doing, it's fun. Um, we're helping a lot of people, and sometimes people come in there that we really don't know if they're going to be a good fit. But after they tell their story of how it's changed their life, we realize, what we're doing is good, and it is changing people's lives. So yes, we do reach out, we do hear from them. A lot of these people are in transition. So if they're on the borderline of being homeless, it's kind of difficult to get a hold of them. And so some of these people we've lost, but there's a lot still involved.
Any other great story, Stacy, that you have that will warm our hearts?
I do. My other favorite one is we had a lady named Judy who she'd been needing our help for a while, and she was just having trouble connecting with our system through the agency that was referring her. She was aging, and she definitely she had been through breast cancer and some other medical issues, and really just needed transportation to be able to get to those medical appointments and get to the grocery store. And so, in looking at her application, it's not a self-sufficiency thing. She's not going back to work. She's probably not going to change our community in a great way through this. But this little car, and she had named her, and I'm forgetting the name, it's on the video. But this little car meant everything to her. And for her, it was truly her independence and her ability to maintain her health, which is a huge kind of secondary impact when we're looking at how we help these folks. And so when I presented the application to Dan and we were talking about it, I said, she doesn't really fit our criteria for we're getting her to work or some kids to school or whatever the case may be. But Dan's response was, if we don't help her, who else is going to? And there's just so many cases that are exactly like that. And so that's why when we look at funders or we look at partners or we need folks to know that we need to serve the person that's in need, not based on some, specific box that they check or who they are as an individual, but really how are we lifting them up to make sure that their health and happiness is as intact as possible.
Well, it's amazing all that you're doing, Dan and Stacy, to help the community. When customers come in that know of what you're doing, Dan, are they thanking you off the side saying, I know I don't know any of these people, but I've heard of what you're doing. This is one of the reasons I come here?
Well, there's two parts to that. Is when people basically are thanking us for what we're doing in our community, I hear that more often when I'm in the community. I'm not at the front counter, so I don't get to hear the feedback directly from the customers in that sense. But it's interesting. I went from a shop owner living in my own little bubble and operating my shop for years. And then when adding in the social impact component, all of a sudden the community is getting engaged with me. I'm being asked to speak on panels, and it's crazy to go in front of other business leaders, and they're coming up to me and thanking me for all the stuff that we're doing in our community. It's just amazing to have that feeling and that gratitude. What we see in the shops, again, this is another survey that Stacy did that asked our customers, what was the answer on that one, Stacy, as far as their engagement?
Does our social impact keep you doing business with us? And 60% of our customers said yes. And that's without us marketing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Wow. This was great. I'm so impressed with your fundamentals and your outreach, and I call it philanthropy. I guess I do, but I think it's more of the commitment that you have. It's more in your heart than it is marketing in my mind. I mean, you've taken your culture from the inside, brought it out. Your customers come to you for those reasons, but then you said, I can trump all of that and get involved in the community and create safe and reliable transportation and have the world out there look at us so much more professionally than we have ever as an industry been looked at. I mean, that's huge. I think that's huge social impact right there.
And it just sets us apart, as far as being a differentiator. I think all shops look for something
Yeah.
that's going to set them apart. And it's interesting to look at what shops value as a differentiator. We're talking about, we have a 5-year, 50,000-mile warranty, and all these different things that we say are differentiators, but the reality is we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
not.
then you look at shops that, when you mention being philanthropic, they're doing their coat drives or whatever the case is. this social impact concept is not about being philanthropic at all. Although the Stranded Motorist Fund stands out as being philanthropic, yes, but that is just one of the benefits of being a social impact company. The idea is being that we are solving community needs. And by
Yeah.
solving community needs, we're gaining market share. We're gaining these customers that are high quality customers. Think about how you typically get a customer is off a lost liter oil change. And then how many visits does it take for that customer to start gaining trust where they're actually willing to start spending money with you? And by the time they gain that trust, they're on to the next coupon. So now you have customers that are coming in to your shop specifically because they want to support you because of the great stuff you're doing for the community. It's a game changer. Now you have instantaneous trust, which is why we're looking at having some of the highest average repair orders in the industry. Is these kind of things where it's about doing good is good for business. It's just an amazing concept.
I just so love what you just said. I think you summed it up perfectly. What's the incubation process from somebody wanting to do this and get involved in your consulting company? A couple of years for it to really take hold?
Yeah, I would say this is definitely the long game. This is not
Okay.
something where you flip a switch and you put out this social media that you're a social impact company. It doesn't work that way. It is
Right.
about gaining a reputation in your community. We own Colorado Springs. That's just the way it works. Our community understands us. But we've been developing this for a long time. And I said this before, is we haven't really marketed anything about this stuff. It's just kind of leaked out. And so the community that's supporting us right now, it's just because we've been doing it through word of mouth. Now, as we start building these programs out and sharing with the community with a bigger effort, then that time frame will shorten. So when shops come on board, they have to think about long game. However, depending on how they put this in their community, it could ramp up pretty quickly.
I keep thinking about these fundamentals and I keep thinking about the fact that, oh, I want to do this, but my core isn't right. It's almost like, Dan, if you're going to take on somebody and help them, they've got to have the culture that'll make this work, right?
Yeah, for us and the social impact side of stuff, the fundamentals or the company culture goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. If your company culture is not where it needs to be and you try to layer in on top of that social impact, you're going to set yourself up for failure. The customers won't have that buy-in. Your staff has to have that company culture where they believe in your purpose and what you're doing for the community. If that culture isn't built, the customers will see right through that. So for us, having that company culture with the fundamentals being in there, the 28 habits, it is a game changer for us. And it just sets us apart, another differentiator.
I love it. Thank you for saying those words, differentiator. I think it's important that so many of us have the identical thing, but yet we don't have the real differentiator, to your point. This was great. Thank you so much, Dan Adam, owner of Adam and Son, 2 locations in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was going to think that it should be Adam and Mom, but that's okay. I understand it's Adam and Son.
It should be Adam and Mom. I agree with you.
Stacy Burns, thank you so much for being here, Vice President of Social Impact and Strategy for Adam and Son. This was great. Thanks. Got to have you back.
Thank you.